Two subjects I thought I might say something about. One was about my recent trip to Seattle, where I met Rick Torseth, and I think Dennis has been to Seattle recently as well, but maybe we can leave that for another time. What I really wanted to say something about for information and for advice from the rest of the group in due course was about the series of webinars that have been run by Oxford and HEC, but primarily Oxford, to promote CCC, which TCL has been involved in. Oxford has started running webinars to promote each of their executive education programs. So there are webinars to promote the finance programs, etc., etc. And they started a series to promote CCC, and they asked us initially if we would promote the webinar, advertise it to our network. And in various ways, it seemed like a bit of an opportunity. So we got rather more involved than that. It seemed like an opportunity to promote TCL, and also perhaps an opportunity to create some learning events, online webinars, that people might like to take part in. I'm not sure how well they've succeeded. We've had, I think, 4 so far. The first one was about the New Eyes book, where several authors took part. There was another one where Professor Sue Dobson was talking about her research on the process of translating management ideas into practice, and Leslie Hilton and John Freeman took part in that. There was one about complexity, the second book. Julie led that, and we had several contributions from members. We've had another one with Cecile leading it and talking about her work on digital change, and Eileen Naverne took part in that. The next one in the series, and I think this leads to my question really, seems to be sort of falling apart, because they really should be led, I believe, by Oxford faculty or HEC faculty, and us joining in and enjoying a discussion. They seem to be now expecting us to do all the work. So I've sort of withdrawn from the next one and said, oh, aren't you doing something? So I think we're sort of in a state of limbo. And I would really like to know whether anybody has appreciated these webinars, whether they think we should do some more. Cecile has some opinions about it, I'm sure. But I just wanted to put that out in front of you for future discussion, probably.
Just a question. Do we have any statistics of how many participated? Because I noticed
yes, you took
our
part.
webinar that they said, oh, 100 people have registered. But I mean, when we were doing it, we were down to 25 at one point, around 40 most of the time.
Yeah, they do have those statistics. I think it's normal, Cecile will know this, for lots of people to register for a webinar and then not many of them to actually come online. I think about 100 were there at the beginning of that webinar. I'm not sure how it went during the process. Cecile's probably got something to say.
I was at 150, but I have no idea how it was in well, that said, webinar, TCL has a WebEx account. So we have in our budget a WebEx account. So if we want, as TCLer, do webinars, just us, not Oxford and so on, we can also. So it's the whole work. Probably Oxford will have more audience because they touch more people.
The branding is good.
So think about it.
Well, I had suggested a particular faculty member could lead a discussion on gender and diversity issues. She's not available, and so instead of finding another, we are friends here, please don't report this too much. Instead of finding another faculty member to lead this, they've said, oh well, what would TCL like to do instead? And I've dodged and said, well, and handed it back into their court. They really should be leading it, unless we want to do something ourselves. Because these webinars are to promote CCC. I believe promoting CCC is good for all of us. It increases the brand for all of us. But it's not our responsibility.
No, but it's a nice exercise. So it's really I will probably come back to that when I finish my own research, because it's an audience. So should I go for my open mic? Okay. So I'm coming to you because I need help as myself, not as TCL.
Only one question regarding why So I think that's a discussion we could have, like,
Tomorrow.
maybe tomorrow. Yeah.
Great idea. Maybe, is there any responses to what I've said? Maybe people could write something up on the board and then we can pick them up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good point. So I'm coming to you for help as myself, not as TCL chairperson, but as myself, as a consultant. I just launched 1 month ago, let's say, a research on middle managers and the digital transition, because I find out that middle manager is a population that is not really studied as a group. And my area is digital transition, technology adoption, collaboration, blah, blah, blah. So I launched that research. And there is a survey open on the internet. And some of you have been writing to some of you. So some of you know, but not everybody. And I'm looking for people to answer this survey, or for HR, vice president, whatever, in big companies to interview if they have specific programs addressing middle managers and top managers, just this kind of population. So if you have customer, connection, whomever who could answer to that survey, or who would be happy to have an interview with me, just let me know, because I'm closing the survey in 1 month from now. I have probably 50 answers, and I want to have at least 80, just to have a good report. And I will share the report for free with TCL, no problem. And with each respondent, I will probably sell the report just to make a little money. I won't sell a lot. I will not become rich. It's more just to renew myself and to open to a new area. So if you can help me just by connecting me to some middle managers, or connecting me to people in that area, in big corporation, over 2,000 employees, I would love to. Thank you.
Is it both private and public?
Who is speaking, sorry?
Private and public, or only private?
Whatever, organization, 2,000 people organization, because otherwise the middle management is not really in the middle. It's there, whether top or bottom, but.
Can I do my academic bit and say, do you know the work of Rosemary Stewart on middle managers?
No.
I'll find it for you.
Yes. Yes.
But it's
Okay.
fundamental.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
I had about three, Cecile, I had about three tutees have done their master's theses on middle management. So
Wonderful.
that's a huge resource.
Yes.
in terms of
Wonderful.
literature and thinking.
I also did it on middle management.
Okay. Okay. Writing down in my head. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So Cecile, you were going to say a few words to begin.
Okay, so I'm removing my hat and putting back my hat. Okay. Okay, so introduction to kitchen table and why we're going to do that. So I'm speaking now as the chairperson of the Change Leaders. I'm a member since 2010 from the Change Leaders, and when I originally, the very first conference I attended, I just handed over my dissertation, then went to the very first conference. And during that conference, we spent, I don't know, probably 3-4 hours in a room like that, thinking about what is the future from TCL. And I was just, oh my God. And you were, yeah, you remember that probably. And I was thinking, oh my God. And then the conference, and I attended.
Hours of our life we will never get back.
And then conference after conference, I attended all the conference because I was passionate by this organization. And conference after conference, it came back. And we again had that discussion. And again, and at some point I was thinking, oh my God, this is really, how do you pronounce that? Sterile in French. And why are we doing that? And then, you know, it's the adoption curve or something like that. And then I understood that this is really something that we need for our understanding our own identity. So we need that discussion, even if it's not really producing anything. Somehow it has been producing things because we started thanks to Elizabeth, who at some stage took the leadership and said, okay, we want to write a book, so let's do it. Thanks to her, we produced the first book.
I remember exactly what you said. You said, let's stop talking about writing a book and do it, or stop talking
Exactly.
about writing a book.
Exactly. So it has somehow produced things, but I mean, I'm the kind of person that in a hurry always. I burn everything I cook. I raise my children so that they put their clothes themselves because I don't have time and so on. So spending this time for discussing was a bit of an effort for me. But I agree, I admitted that this was necessary for the organization to be an organization. It has not happened since, I don't know, we've not been doing it the last 2 or 3 conferences, and it came back in the last conference, and a few people told me, we need to talk. We need to talk about the future of the change leaders. What are we going to do? Who are we? What do we want? How do we want to transform ourselves? Do we want to grow? Blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, oh my God, okay, let's go back to that. This is a Sunday event, so this Sunday it's just us. So it would have been one of us to facilitate that. So I've been thinking who could facilitate that and so on. I did not find, I discussed that with the board and we did not find, so I said, okay, let's forget it. And maybe I will have the magic idea. And then I read our book. And I read the chapter that Lisa Henrik wrote. And I remember, where is she? Julie told me that maybe we could do a kitchen table. But I said, well, we have a stranger in our room. It's Sunday, just us. So, then I read the chapter and I changed my mind. And I thought he should be neutral, and I hope you will be neutral. You have to be neutral. But maybe the kitchen table is the tool for today having that discussion again, and maybe being a little more productive than what we were before, how we were before. So that's the story, and I think I've been speaking enough.
Thank you so much. Lisa, will you say a couple of words?
Sure. I don't need the mic. So I really don't need it. But I'll take it because that's really important, I guess. So in the context of the conversation this morning, the kitchen table conversation is very in tune with many of our discussions. And what I would say is this is the setup for tomorrow so that people come in tomorrow and feel relaxed and comfortable with the process of the kitchen table conversation. You might find it to be a marvelous tool. You might think, it's not for me. But what you will get is a chance to reflect and to think, would I add this to my toolbox? How could I use this? Is it something that I can see value in for my clients? So what we're really doing is presenting another tool for you. And if you think it's fantastic, we'll be really happy. And if you don't, we'll be really happy anyway. So.
And that's true, because we're neutral. So let me just start by saying that it's a tremendous honor to be here with this group, and I knew that before listening in on the conversations over the last couple of days, but having had a chance to hear you folks think, it really is a tremendous honor to be here. I don't think I've done some pretty tough gigs. For instance, the world's biggest law firm sent me to Barcelona to do a 90-minute session. In the audience were the 300 partners of the firm. And remember that the CEO of the law firm works for the partners. They can fire him if they don't like the meeting. So the 300 partners of the firm are in the audience, and on stage with me are the general counsel of 6 of their global clients: AXA, Swiss Re, InBev, Telefonica, Shell, and the European General Counsel of Morgan Stanley. So if they didn't have a good time, that's millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars at the door. But there's more pressure here because this is a room full of stars, so ramp down your expectations. As Lisa said, this is the appetizer. This is to give you a flavor for how a kitchen table works, and picking up, and there'll be a couple times when I pick up Steve's language, picking up the discussion of triple loop learning, will also reflect on the way we use ideas, the way we take fragile ideas and help them be ideas that live. And that too will help us, because I did not know that Cecile was going to say what she did, but I've done enough of these sessions to know that there is nothing worse than to take the time and then at the end, no matter how good the ideas were, if the ideas stay in the session and don't move into reality, like, well, what are we doing this for? And so for many, many, many years, I've designed sessions to help ideas move from the liberating space out into our usual world. And here's an opportunity, given the firepower in this room, to think more deeply about that. In a minute, I would be grateful if everybody would move the chairs into a kind of an oval around these chairs. But before you do, I'd just like to say that some people have very kindly agreed to join me here. Monica and Nadia and Hussein and Mark have very kindly agreed to come and have a conversation with me. We'll be having a chat about the care and feeding of ideas, how you move ideas from liberating space out into the usual world in a way that they live, in a way that they turn into, first, they have to become commitments, then they become actions, and then they become results. And what does that journey look like is what we'll be talking. And we'll do that for a few minutes. And then after that, it will be over to you. And I would like you to be in a kind of an oval to begin with. But once it's over to you, that will mean turning to your neighbors in small groups of 4 or 5. And I'll give you a question at that point to see what all of us can contribute to a conversation about how we transform ideas. And then, of course, we'll hear back from those groups and we'll have a plenary discussion. The last and critical thing I need to tell you about is how I define the term kitchen table conversation. I know that not every country in the world uses the term kitchen table conversation, and that's one of the exciting things about being in this group, that there are so many cultures here. But I also know that every society in the world has this kind of conversation. In the Arabian world, it's called a majlis. Here in the UK, it's called a breakfast table conversation. In Japan, people sit around the kotatsu, which is a lot. Until recently, Japanese homes weren't heated, and so they had this low table with a brazier underneath the table and then a blanket over top, and the whole family would sit around this little kotatsu and keep warm from the brazier while they had a sukiyaki, one of those big hot pot meals, and have a wonderful conversation so tight around the table. Monica, forgive me, the term is? Stammtisch. Is a slightly disreputable German term, but there's a table, I'm told, in a pub where the guys are there and they solve all the world's problems at this table. Stammtisch. I'm going to have to write down the spelling of that. So this pattern exists everywhere, and that's what I'd like to do here. You could have your best conversations in a kitchen, or you could have your best conversations at a family gathering, or at a Stammtisch, or at a majlis, or around a kotatsu, wherever you have your best conversations. And whatever you would do in your best conversations, please do that here. I imagine it includes storytelling and heart-to-heart and bringing each other up to date, some jokes. And I certainly hope that in your best conversations, people are interrupting each other and disagreeing with each other, because how can you have a real conversation if people aren't interrupting each other and disagreeing with each other? And I've been doing this for about 20 years now, and I can tell you that the interrupting and the disagreeing are really quite essential to making the conversation really sparkle. This being a kitchen table conversation for a purpose, I recommend a small dashboard. And that small dashboard asks, you ask yourself 2 questions or 3 questions. One, is this pertinent? And the thing about the dashboard is, as you assess these 3 dimensions, if you're not satisfied with any of the 3 dimensions, interrupt. Move the conversation to the conversation you want. But the 3 questions are, is this pertinent? Is this surprising in a useful way? And is it fun? So as this conversation unfolds, if you want it to be more pertinent, more surprising, more fun, just step into the conversation and stir the pot. So with that, I'd be grateful if our volunteers would join me up here, and if everybody would bring a chair and form an oval around us. That's a good distance, yeah. We'll need a bit of a distance so that everybody can fit. Actually, perhaps a little bit farther back, Luke. Thank you. And all the way around, it would be good if people were around on this side as well. Come closer, Hussein.
Shaving beard?
I wish. I have. So the only, for our part of the conversation, the only formal thing we'll do is that we'll go once around at the beginning. And I know that you all mostly know everybody here, but just in case there's anybody here who doesn't know you, just say a tiny little bit about yourself. And if you wouldn't mind, just a very first opening comment about the care and feeding of ideas. It could be just an observation that you had, or a question, even within that notion of how do we help ideas thrive. If you have a question that needs to be answered or can be usefully answered to get us to a good place, we can start there. So, Monica, I will go first, and then over to you. Okay, around we go. So I'm Rick Wolf. I'm obsessed with conversation, and I've been lucky enough to have a practice that for many, many years now has allowed me to have long and deep conversations and chains of conversations with all kinds of organizations, but typically very big, very, very big, often global companies, in streams of conversation designed to strengthen the business or change the direction of the business. And when it comes to, I'll start with a metaphor or 2 metaphors. One is we need to treat ideas like a seed that hasn't been properly planted yet and hasn't been tended in the garden yet. And secondly, sometimes we just need a good mitt or a net so that we're catching the ideas and making sure that we have hold of them before we leave the room.
Thank you, Rick. Monica Linzmann. I'm working for more than 30 years in the finance industry. And concerning ideas, I'm again and again very unhappy how difficult it is to really talk about ideas in huge organizations, because a lot of people fear retribution and they really bring open their ideas how to do things. And I'm really curious to learn how we can overcome this fear in these kind of organizations.
Thank you.
Hussein from CCC6 lives in Dubai, and over there we all are from different cultures, so that's the most difficult thing, to actually communicate with each other. Somebody coming from China, somebody coming from Arabia, somebody coming from Africa, and everybody has got a different kind of a mindset. So to open the shell or to open the sort of personalities, that's the biggest challenge for me working in the Middle East, basically, where the defense systems, as Monica rightly said, that in a large organizations, people are having high defense mechanisms, basically. In the Middle East, people also have very high defense mechanisms, and they are very sort of, it takes a long time for them to open up. and you keep trying to break the shell and, you know, sort of, so I'm very happy that we are having this. It will help me to make my life slightly easier as a CEO of a medium-sized company. So I span from Far East, like from China.
So that gives us a good taste. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll focus on the theme defensiveness, so thank you. That's
Yes,
great. Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes.
Nadia.
Hi, I'm Nadia Lakhani from CCC 10. I grew up in India but lived in mainly in North America, so I have a bit of mix of East and West, and so it's pretty interesting to see how ideas are formed and executed. What I'm interested in is, in my mental model, there's two things you can do. It's either, you know, you first think and then you do. And once you've thought of an idea, then I think it all becomes about executing that idea. And the passion and the drive that you execute with, I think directly leads to success. So I think that's
Thank you.
start with.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Mark Clark. I work for a non-profit organisation called Generations for Peace. So it's a peace-building organisation working in communities. I think we've heard a lot about generation of ideas, but I wanted to pick up on Nadia's point about execution of ideas. And perhaps one of the links is execution of ideas in structures which do have power as a major factor in whether an idea can actually be implemented.
Thank you, and you guys have done a great job of setting an agenda. If I may add something to the agenda, it's ideas where the organization is flat and has few resources, possibly even a membership-based organization, for instance, like the one we're in. That's another case where the care and feeding of ideas can be a challenge. But open season, folks. I think you heard some interesting things to build on, agree with, disagree with, puzzle over.
Mark, what do you mean by where the power is? So what is for you the connection then between power and idea?
I think maybe firstly in the surfacing of ideas. So you were saying people may feel reluctant to voice an idea, so there's some sort of power structure that may dictate whether they feel they have the authority to voice an idea that's in their head, or whether there might be some risk for them in doing that, whether the reward mechanisms within their organization encourage voicing ideas, and then through to the execution part, even if there are many great ideas, is there actually the political will within an organization to support with resources the translation of an idea into action? Did that answer you?
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you talked about overcoming fear. So I'm trying to connect, power versus overcoming fear. And is fear then a byproduct of, feeling less powerful or not having the environment to be able to express yourself? So I feel like there might be some kind of connection between power and fear. So is that what you're thinking about fear and execution? Is that fear and execution or expressing your ideas?
No, it starts early. It's really about expression ideas. And yeah, I think fear comes when you feel powerless. And the problem is why do people feel powerless? And we are all adults. We know what we are doing. Even when we are in a hierarchical organization, everybody has their specific tasks, and for this they have power, and they should then also voice concerns, voice new ideas, and they still are not able to do this. And if they don't even bring this out, and I wonder if this is something that is a general topic of our even more Western competitive culture, and what we can really do about it to change this, and to get into this paradigm shift also.
I have to tell you that this is completely unexpected, incredibly interesting, but I need to shift gears. I would love to spend a lot of time on this because I can tell that we can generate something really interesting on this dynamic. But let's if we can move to an environment where it is a safe environment. And even in the safest environment, those new ideas are fragile. They're delicate, and sometimes they disappear. They're like some atomic particle that only exists for a moment. And so you have to capture the particle and somehow nurture it or somehow get it to multiply on itself until it's bigger and more substantial before you can take it out. And that thinking, doing process is not instantaneous.
My two sons, one is very shy, the small one, and the two daughters are very vocal, basically. So in my own kitchen table, what happens is that the timid son says something, and when I say, "Can you repeat that?" No, I just don't want to. So his idea is generally very softly spoken, and if you ask him to repeat that, he will never do that. And that's my experience on what Rick has just said. That it comes.
It's a beautiful illustration. So what do we do when Hussein's son so tentatively or softly states an idea? How do we help Hussein's son? How do we help ourselves hear the idea, really hear the idea?
Well, I would guess it would be great to have a conversation with him one-on-one, not in front of his brothers and sisters.
Yep.
And to try and get the idea out of him in that context. He may feel more comfortable.
You have answered that.
But can I also say something? It might sound.
You're allowed to disagree.
I don't disagree.
Oh, I'm disappointed.
But not all ideas are worth exploring. And so if someone is, not to say your son, but I'm saying if son in an organization especially, if you hear an idea, it's not necessary that you should explore that idea. It might not be worth it.
Agreed. And because
Who
of
decides?
Right?
Who decides what is worth exploring and what is not worth exploring?
and so I'm going to tighten our lens.
Okay.
So I'm going to tighten our lens even tighter. And the lens now is it's a beautiful idea. And you can feel around the table. I'm sorry.
We all agree it's good.
We indeed. I don't know about your experience, and I'm asking this of the whole room. I don't know about your experience, but I have seen beautiful ideas, just heavenly ideas, disappear, die on the vine. Just it is nothing. So what's your advice? Because I know that I'm surrounded by people who have brought ideas to life. Mark, how do you bring an idea to life?
Well, if it's a beautiful idea and it's you're giving us the premise it's universally accepted as a good idea, there's a lot of work.
You've never seen it. You've never seen it.
Pretty rare, maybe.
Well, so that's an important point to acknowledge.
I think it takes a huge amount of work just to get to that point.
So let's talk about that for a minute. It takes a huge amount of work to have a baby idea be universally acknowledged as a good idea. So tell me more about that.
That's a very academic discussion then.
but I'm interested in real life. And remember...
Yeah, but in real life you will never get this. That everybody says, "Oh, that's a wonderful idea."
Okay,
You will never
so
get
I'll use the UK vernacular. So everybody agrees it's a crap idea, but there's just enough people at the table who see its potential. Okay, then what?
I think you need the buy-in, but once I think you have the buy-in from whoever is in the execution, I think there needs to be somebody who's leading it, who's very passionate about the idea, to be able to mobilize the team to implement. I think that's one of the key things that you need. Strong leadership.
I agree in that way, strong leadership, but mostly good ideas come out of weak leaderships.
Do they?
That's what I've seen most of the time, and the strong leaderships generally sort of bulldoze it out and, as what Rick is saying, that some of the best ideas gets sort of pushed out of the track, and how do we keep them sort of converting into action? In my part of the world, I've seen that as the norm, you can say, or a practice.
I think it just, in the Middle East culture, I think, and maybe perhaps other cultures around the world, the organizations have a very top-down structure, very hierarchical, and junior members of an organization have never been asked for their ideas. And so when you start to try to introduce those sorts of processes and really want their ideas, firstly, they're simply not used to it, so they really struggle to present an idea, and secondly, they're still really worried about potential responses and whether their idea might be approved or not, so therefore they hold back for both reasons. So that I find that every day in Jordan.
And so now I want to take you to a very special case, and the special case is the change leaders. So flat organization, very powerful group of people, but still with the same challenges. Ideas that are not supported by everybody, but yet have potential. How, and let's talk hypothetically, how, because we're talking about the future, how might an idea that, let's just say that, let's imagine that only one person in the room, or maybe only two people in the room, and they haven't realized that the other one is there, see the tremendous potential in an idea. What would your advice to those people be about here in the change leaders, helping an idea come to life, live on?
Well, I liked Elizabeth's comment of, let's stop talking something or sort of put up a
It was such serendipity that story came out.
So at some point there's got to be a moment like that.
So Elizabeth has to be in every meeting.
I think we all need to follow Elizabeth's example and be prepared to say that when it needs to be said.
I think but it goes into this direction. Someone has to have the courage to say then, okay, then let's start. And this effectively means, in this sense, then this person is taking on the leadership. But this person then also will be held accountable for it. And if it doesn't work out, then you also have to be able to say, okay, look guys, we tried it, didn't work out, but okay, next time. And having this courage is something that we effectively have to nurture then in our group, that we say, if someone sticks his head out, we will appreciate it.
Bravo. Wonderful.
We have to be open as change leaders to others, and even though we might not completely agree, their passion, I think, also generates some kind of support in us, right? So I think as change leaders, we owe it to each other to do that.
I also think that the risk is much lower. This is a community of sort of friends, but also a community of practice. The risk is much lower trying something out here than it may be in our own organizations. So, let's be a bit more courageous, because the risk is low.
Still, I think we need to really decide how much and what do we want to do. Because I think it's the death of a lot of good ideas, that we have a lot of people with a lot of ideas, but we can't do them all. So we really have to say, okay.
So there need to be decision criteria.
Yeah.
Am I going too far to suggest that as one of the things that has to happen, decision criteria?
Yeah, or a decision, what is really our priority? So what do we need to work on? Because we all have busy lives, we all have no time to spend, as we just heard from the city, and so we have to restrain ourselves.
So with that, I'd like to get everybody in this conversation now, if you wouldn't mind, just in a minute, turning to make small groups among your neighbors, turn together, 4 or 5 people in each group. And please do focus your inquiry on the nurturing of ideas in a situation like the change leaders, a situation similar to the change leaders. Always got to keep it just a bit, got to give a bit of wiggle room. And the deliverable I would request is this: one, something that occurs to you might be obvious, but you never know, other people might not mention it. And 2, an idea which is not obvious. And please bring us something that you don't think that other people would suggest. And if I may remind you, those conversation criteria, is this pertinent? Are we hearing surprising things? And this is fun. Thank you so much. Fun is the prime directive. And with that, great thanks to our inner panel here. And if you wouldn't mind just turning to your neighbors and begin that discussion, we'll hear back from you in a few minutes.